I'm really looking forward to this today. This is our first RCN Synnex webinar that we're doing together. Um, yeah, this is a partnership that's going to be going forward called GovTech Guidance. We're doing, what is it? I think 5 shows together, guys. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay, right on. So yeah, it's going to be good. We're today we're talking about empowering your community with new digital technologies. We've got myself, Mark Indelicato, content marketing specialist. We've got Reed Perryman, director of public sector sales, Mike Gambrell, SLED vertical alliance manager at Synnex, and Christian Ross, public safety program manager at Synnex. Here's our first question for the main segment. From a state, local, and public safety level, how does a modern department with modern technology differ from the past? Mike, you wanna take us off with that one?
Yeah, and I'll take it from the state and local side, and then I'll let Christian chime in, from the public safety side. What we're seeing in state and local government is digital transformation, and so with that digital transformation, what's occurring in state and local government is from your basic city services to digital services. In my previous career of 30 years in law enforcement and a retired police chief, then when I got involved in that back in 1984, and moving forward, people were coming into to our government buildings and paying their taxes and performing other functions, which was basic city services that we were providing. But now through this digital transformation, you're seeing digital services. Something that I didn't think I would ever hear of is a state and local government employee working from anywhere. We started out talking about, through the whole pandemic, working from home, but, really it's working from anywhere. And so these cities now, are looking at it from this aspect, okay, hey, on one side, I've got to look at that, work from anywhere mentality, and I'm offering digital services through digital transformation. So if I've got non-essential employees working from home, then I've got to be able to provide them the technology. And on the other side of the coin, I've got to be able to provide my citizens the technology, because what we're seeing is cities competing against one another for residents. And so, when you start talking about, building out from safe city into smart city IoT type solutions, then, you're talking about, smart parking, smart metering, tracking of bicycle rentals for the whole rails to trails philosophy that many cities have, and attracting that resident into your city versus the other cities. So I think that we've went from pen and paper, you might say, to and to those transactions, hand to hand transactions, to digital services in this day and time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Christian, you wanna talk about public safety then?
Yes, so from the public safety side, there's been so many changes to modernize a public safety agency. First of all, everyone needs to be able to communicate with everyone, and you can't take up radio airtime to do that because you have limited airtime and everybody needs to talk. So with the modernization, you now have dispatch programs where you can chat with either other officers, or you can chat with the dispatcher and you can figure things out without having to take up that time. It makes workflows. So you have a paperless record system that, rather than trying to determine how old a victim is and do you put them on the first page or the second page because what's FOIA requestable, you just type in your paperless record system what you need to put in, and the computer will automatically take out the things that need to be taken out. At the same time, it also emails and assigns investigators or victims advocates to follow up automatically. So that's going to be done, and you'll have a record of who was told to do something. So if something falls through, you'll know where to look. And another one is, it has been a long problem of what to do with your BOLO information. When you're supposed to be on the lookout for something, that's great. But what happens after a couple of hours or a couple of days? If you find a stolen car with a pink breast cancer tag, from a certain state that has been reported stolen or was involved in a robbery, if you don't find it that day, but you happen to see it the next day, what do? You can't find where that information was. It just came out over the radio. So having programs installed that will handle things like that you just came up on something you think was a bolo in the recent past, finding those things out and solving crimes is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Reed, I know you have a little bit of a different perspective as you kind of touched all of these points as our director of public sector sales. But what are you seeing as far as differences?
Yeah, on the state and local side, I really want to underscore one thing that Mike had mentioned. Historically, with a lot of towns and cities out there, the local tourism in terms of sightseeing, shopping, athletic events, and a number of other physical and or landmark attractions have really been the big draw to get residents to move and stay within the city. We all understand that drive of why cities, counties want more residents, right? That's more taxable dollars that ultimately go into the fiscal year budget, which they can then use to continue improving the offerings that they have for their constituents out there. So I think what we're really seeing now is technology's role is become a pillar in that strategy. And your local tourism bureau is not only looking at, hey, what can we do in terms of our parks initiatives? What can we do in terms of our shopping initiatives? But also, what can we do in terms of technology, from the bikes on greenway systems with the trackers built into those to be able to keep up with those assets and manage those assets, to smart metering for parking solutions where you can park on the street and be able to pay that with your debit card versus always having to have change on hand for fear of getting ticketed by a meter maid. So a number of these things that are really positioned and in the mind, in the forefront of a lot of local and state governments' thoughts on how do we get people here and get them to stay. And then on the public safety side, what I'll build on what Christian said is, obviously, I've not been in law enforcement like Mike and Christian have, but it's not easy to just see that evolution, especially with what we call field ready office, meaning that patrol fleet, the vehicle that the officer resides in to do his job day in, day out while he's on patrol, has really become so modernized that there's no longer a need for him to truck roll into the office to submit some paperwork when he could have a wireless modem with a cellular backhaul from Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, the routers of Sierra, Cradlepoint, something of that nature, providing his hub connectivity that's connected to his mobile data terminal, which is typically rugged like a GTAC or Panasonic. Also, e-citation capabilities for quick ticketing with a Brother printer, a PocketJet 7, for example, and many more in terms of body-worn cameras, in-car camera systems that are all plugged back to that connectivity piece. But it's all aimed to keep that officer closer to the people he has sworn to protect while he's on shift. That's why we call it a field ready office, because everything he needs from a mission critical software standpoint to do his day-to-day reporting and ticketing is right there at his fingertips with all that technology integration. So that is just leaps and bounds forward from even 20 years ago, when it was predominantly every time you've got something you got to file, you truck roll back and then back out, taking you away from the people you serve and protect.
Yeah, and Reed, that actually increases, enhances your response times for us to have this connected patrol car. In digital transformation, we talk about, computing on the edge, and that's truly what our first responders are doing, in this day and time. I just found an artifact, from 1984. There's my clipboard that I hand wrote my incident reports on, so for those in the audience, that might bring back, a few memories for you there. But when you are laying out a scope of a project on a grant, from a funding stream side, when you're laying out, any type of project, then you are having to define your objectives, and anytime I went before mayor and council, the first thing there's going to be out of their mouths is, okay, why do you need this technology? And so being able to have that, and let RCN help you and assist you in providing those bullet points. For example, like what you was talking about, Reed, is back in the day, I had to leave my beat to go back to the police department to perform essential functions. Okay, if that hot call comes in, it takes me longer to get back to my beat. In that time, lives could be lost, people could be hurt. But by having the modern patrol car and the connected vehicle, then I can keep that officer on his or her beat, thus enhancing response times. And how does that translate for your city councilman? Well, the city councilman can, stick their chest out and say, hey, listen, while I was on council, I enhanced response times for the police department and thus provided them with the needed technology to integrate into those police vehicles to enhance the response times and better serve our citizens.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. It really is crazy seeing how much of a difference it's made, right? And especially when you're talking about safety and being able to react quicker, it's just all positive advancements. So with that, we'll move on to our next question. And I will actually, after I show this for a second, I'm going to switch my screen off so that we can see us full screen. But what are some exciting new technologies you guys have seen implemented at the public safety state and local levels? So we can we'll start with Reed this time. We'll work our way backwards.
Well, I think one of the number one things that I get excited about, especially in terms of safe city initiatives, would be gunshot detection systems. These things are very sophisticated these days. It's what you'd consider a traditional Internet of Things type application, meaning you just need some kind of connectivity backhaul to relay that data back to dispatch to then get the appropriate responding public safety group out on the scene to mitigate any damages or mitigate any event from breaking out. But really, it's so great, right? You put these sensors up in key intersections throughout the city, and I'm not entirely brushed up on all the technology under the hood, but my understanding is that when a gunshot does go off, this array of sensors does its best effort, maybe through sound, maybe through gunpowder residue in the air, to triangulate the position of that gunshot. And then this is not necessarily in place today, but with some of those realities of 5G that are going to come down the pipe from our major carriers, you could even have some applications like sensor queuing. So you overlay your camera system at intersections to not only lock on to that event scene, but if that person travels, then you could have them queue up to follow that person as they travel away from that event scene and kind of have a live tracking so law enforcement groups can know where their perp is at all times. So those are just one thing I know is real today that's exciting, and one thing that's a currency tomorrow that just makes it even better.
Yeah, those are fascinating. Christian, what do you got?
So I'm going to add on to what Reed said, because the gunshot detection systems are great and they triangulate that sound. They do what they're supposed to do. But a lot of places have stopped calling it gunshot detection and have started calling it noise pollution detection, because they don't necessarily want to only track gunshots. I'll take fireworks too. If fireworks are illegal in that municipality, they want to know about them. You can do the same thing with annoyingly loud engines. When you have that signal go off, if it's a recurring problem, they can respond and decide what they want to do about it. So yes, it stops all kinds of problems because you know where the annoying sounds or the illegal sounds are coming from. So that's one. Another one is going to be your video analytics. These things are more and more incredible. We had a situation in Ohio about a year ago, about the time that this pandemic was coming on, and they installed cameras and they put the analytics on them. And the analytics essentially let them know if somebody's jumping a fence, or if somebody goes where they're not supposed to go, or if they loiter in certain places for too long. The camera essentially raises its hand and says, hey, you need to look at me right now. Something's going on that you'll want to know about. But by far the best was where they had set parameters in there that if there were more than 5 people in a group that was less than 6 feet apart for more than 5 minutes, they wanted to know about it. Well, on day 3, they got a notification. And, everybody kind of assumed that it was going to be a false alarm. But when they actually looked at it, they saw that there were 6 people standing in an intersection. The vehicle was parked crossways so that they were blocking traffic. They were pulling out the bullhorn and the signs, and they were starting a protest right there. Well, they immediately dispatched police. By the time police got there were 40 approximately protesters. They were able to break up 40 protesters, but had they waited any more time, they would not have been able to break up several hundred protesters. So video analytics saved the day on this one. And the last one that I'll talk about is signals intelligence. Signals intelligence is the way of the future. It is what is going to happen. So whether you have a jail, and oftentimes you have contraband like cell phones snuck into a jail. Well, this signals intelligence device knows immediately when a cell phone is turned on within that range. And so it can find not only the cell phone, but it will tell you the number of the SIM card in that cell phone. It'll tell you the numbers that that cell phone is calling out to or receiving calls on, and it will triangulate in exact 3D space where that cell phone is. So you can install that in a jail. If you want to install it in a street light, you can install it in a street light. You won't know the names, but you'll know the MAC addresses and the relevant SIM numbers of vehicles that drive by. So if you want to match up your camera to whoever is in that car with a trackable cellular device, you can do that now.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I remember, TV a year or two ago, you could triangulate, someone within like a 5-mile radius, and now you can just do it within a couple feet, I would imagine, to be able to be that accurate. That's awesome.
Yes.
Wow. So Mike, what do you got?
Okay, Mark, I'll take it to the next level. When you have this technology, where does it stream into? That's your command center. So in law enforcement, it's known as the real-time crime center or emergency operations center. But like Reed and Christian was both talking about, placing sensors, at even intersections. Getting out. Christian made a point of, tracking things other than gunshots. Getting into weather tracking. Getting into true smart city applications, and being able to stream them back in. So data drivers would be your moving eyes in the sky, the drones, your fixed eyes in the sky, the surveillance cameras like Christian was talking about, being able to stream them back in, being able to stream in body worn in-car cameras, and gunshot detection, like Reed's talking about, all of these different data drivers. But then here we think about it from a safe city perspective. Now broaden that out for state and local government, and so you can take a command center and it can be a control center in a K through 12 or a higher ed location where you have internal and external cameras, access control, all of that coming back in. It can be a smart transportation center in regulated industries. It can track your shipping, whether it's by land or by sea, coming back in from a sensor type solution there. A construction site, cameras there coming back into a control center. And I should say too, we always think about body worn in-car cameras. Well, hey, body worn in-car cameras, we've had several deals where from a workman's comp liability situation, the construction company has actually put in-car cameras in the dump trucks and the tractors, body worn cameras, and looking at it from a workman's comp liability situation, putting it in a hospital in the healthcare industry, of internal and external cameras, access control, all that coming back in. So you start thinking about it. Here we are talking about, first of all, safe city and this whole digital transformation that first responders are going through. But then you broaden it out and look, and then that's when it starts coming out from a safe city into a full smart city solution. And really, if you think about it, the 5 pillars of smart city, the foundational pillar should be safety and security, because if your city is even perceived as being unsafe, you'll never be able to build out a full smart city solution. So being able to take this, really focus in on safe city first, and then building it out into a smart city. Just wanted to give you a glimpse from the state and local perspective of how it expands out from a safe to a smart city.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And that's one of my favorite aspects of not just 5G, but that's applicable to private cellular as well. It's just, the capacity improvements that allow for that just massive IoT increase. Yeah, that's awesome. Let me share my screen here for this next question. What can those in the field and those at HQ do to optimize connectivity? So this is just talking about bringing more connectivity in and making the most of it, right? So Mike, if you want to lead us off with that one.
Well, with us talking about smart city IoT, using that acronym, that's what we're hearing from governors and our elected officials at the state level, coming down to mayors and councils, and then you've got police chiefs and share and fire chiefs and EMS directors and public works directors. City attorneys, all of them looking, hey, how do I fit in to this? And it goes back to what I talked about before, as far as that safe city. But then you start thinking about, okay, what is IoT? And if I had 10 people standing beside me, we'd have 10 different definitions of IoT. But what I think should be what I think I could get them to agree on is that the foundational pillar or that cornerstone should be connectivity. What are we trying to do? Connect smart devices, so you see that in public safety with our first responders. You see it in state and local government relative to the importance of connectivity. Whether it comes back in what Reed was talking about earlier, and having that smartly equipped officer, the smartly equipped patrol car. When I stopped a car in 1984, the only thing I had as far as technology goes was my radio. And being able to call that in and give the best description of the vehicle and the tag number. Now with connectivity in a patrol car, I type the tag into the computer that has connectivity to NCIC that gives me a readout and gives me all the vital information I need to know before I ever turn the blue lights on and make the traffic stop and make the approach to the vehicle. So from an officer safety standpoint, that's huge. It really, the importance of connectivity could be the difference between an officer going home at night and not going home at night. And that's something that I didn't have in 1984. Relative to, hey, I walked into the unknown. And, that's why, from a law enforcement standpoint, traffic stops and domestic violence calls are, the most dangerous because you kind of walking into the unknown. But now being able to integrate technology that can make the difference and provide you with key information before you enter into those calls, really is a true enhancement for officer safety.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Christian, I can imagine you could add something to this.
Well, if you are in a cellularly covered area, 5G is getting better and better every day. It is coming closer and closer to full throttle 5G. And we support that. You need to have a 5G router. You need to have that kind of connectivity, especially if you're going to be moving video. I mean, the video is a memory hog and a data hog. So that's going to be important. The way I kind of took this question, though, is, you may have some problems with connectivity. You may be out of range. You may have, difficulty with that. So in that event, you need to make sure that you have the right systems and programs in place. Do you have programs that are designed to update at certain times? Can you update them at the beginning of your shift? But for things that you might not have to have up to the minute information. For example, when I used to drive the tag reader car, I only needed to update it twice a day. That's all the times the updates came out. And so you would know all the tags that were stolen or hadn't paid their taxes or whatever at 6:30 in the morning and 6:30 at night. That's when I needed it. On the other hand, if you have a large dead zone that is in your jurisdiction, there's a couple of things you can do. Number one, we would always suggest you go with backup. Number two, you would want to have either an extender that'll go through some of those dead zones. with the high gain antennas, those sorts of things, or satellite access. You might not be able to get video or anything through there, but you can get text messages to where you need to get. And that doesn't matter if you have cellular service. Or another option is to have, wireless data ported in, and we can do that at fiber optic speeds up to 31 miles away, line of sight. So as long as you got line of sight, I can get signal to a telephone pole 31 miles away from where I am. And then you'll have certain places like that you can go within your dead zone that will be connectable places, and you'll be able to get all your signals that you need through there.
Yeah, that's fascinating for sure. Reed, I'm sure you have something to add to that. What do you got?
Myself and my team work with law enforcement agencies around the clock here at RCN, primarily providing them an enterprise-grade connectivity solution to enhance that security and safety and response time that we've all been talking about over the past 30 minutes or so. And one thing that I'll actually just kind of build on top of, I had one particular county sheriff I partnered with in northern Georgia, which is the southern end of Appalachia, the Appalachian chain there, where they had about 50% coverage gaps across their county. And this severely crippled their ability to stay connected and logged into mission critical software applications like CAD for dispatching purposes and RMS for running license plates and the like. Mike mentioned earlier, one of the most dangerous times for an active duty officer is that traffic stop, right? Because you're walking into the unknown. So what we did there is we actually partnered with them to provide a high availability 4G routing solution paired with a high gain antenna that Christian mentioned earlier. That high gain antenna went on the deck lid of their Charger fleet. And once they did some testing in that northern end of the county that butts into the mountains, they found that they increased their reception probably about 45% with only about 5% dead zones remaining. So it could be as simple as that, but the currencies or the payoff for doing something as simple as that could be just limitless, right? Preventative at the very least, in terms of ending up in a situation where you are in some kind of dangerous event that you've responded to or traffic stop that you've responded to, but you're in a known dead spot and there's no good way to call out to get back up. There's also RF radio based solutions out there as well that can help with some of that gap coverage, specifically for any kind of public safety group that has to go off the grid or needs that last mile connectivity solution. We partner with a manufacturer called GovTech, I believe is at Synnex as well. And if a department opts to choose GovTech, these small attachments, GovTech Pro X's, I believe, attachments to your iPhone or Android operating system, act almost as a mesh radio network. So even when there's no cellular signal, they can still get real-time location capabilities and also send SMS text messages between GovTech Pro X devices. So there are other things out there. The last thing I'll say is agencies could opt to look for a true last mile cellular-based solution like RCN's pop-up network kit, Pelican style kit, very rugged, very reliable, integrates one of the market share leaders in LTE connectivity and 5G connectivity. Cradlepoint, along with that high gain antenna, which really is what makes the magic happen. But at the push of a button, you can have highly available, reliable connectivity in a Wi-Fi broadcasted bubble with a 12-hour power bank built in. So for that true last mile solution, you've got an option there too. I like to tell people where your car can't go, this thing can, and your NBT can come with you, so you can still do what you need to do out there off the grid. So that's what I'd have to add to that.
Yeah, that was great, and I really like that you highlighted. There's so much. There's not really a one-size-fits-all solution, right? That's why it's so important to have an expert, who knows what they're talking about, that you can rely on for things like that. But there is a solution for just about everything. Not one size fits all, but there's something out there. So let's pop up our next one. And Christian, I want to go to you first with this one. What can departments do to future-proof their security?
Yeah, well, thanks for putting me first.
You got it.
So the number one thing that you need to do to future-proof your security is to make security your top priority. You're going to need not only network security, endpoint security, storage security. Watch those CGIS requirements, because CGIS requires for you, if you have digital evidence and you're transporting that, it requires you to have that either locked up when you're transporting it or encrypted. And if you can't afford to encrypt it, you can lock it up. Having those solutions, but the security solutions that go along with that. So not just, the days of antivirus software are just over. You need so much more than that. You have the 0-day attacks that happen. You need to have something monitoring your network for any anomalies that may be happening, and they can notify you, hey, this started. So one of the devices that we have in the monitoring services is they'll not only monitor your network and let you know when something happens, but should the worst happen and you somehow they get past all of your security and ransomware gets loaded onto your servers, they have the ability, because they monitor all network traffic, they can tell you what the password is to that ransomware, because they know all the traffic. So they can reverse engineer and give you the password to your own ransomware. Now, that is an absolute last resort, because once you get hit with something like ransomware, you have to disclose that. So if you're going to use any video evidence and the defense attorney says, I object to this evidence because you didn't have a clean chain of custody, you got hit with ransomware and it was stuck on that server, your evidence is not going to come in anymore. So that's going to be my number one.
Yeah, I like your choice of that, because that's a very topical topic, I guess, with the that gas pipeline that just got hit with the ransomware attack.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Mike, what are your thoughts on future-proofing security?
Well, I think cybersecurity is huge, and like Christian said, it should be a high priority. The commonality across every vertical that you see in state and local government, whether it's state and local government, whether it's education, whether it's public safety, whether it's regulated industry, whether it's healthcare. When you start building this state and local government out into smart city IoT solutions, cybersecurity is that commonality that you see play across. Mark, you just mentioned the Colonial Pipeline. That's the latest. In the one that got a lot of national attention. But over the pandemic, we've seen ransomware play out time and time and time again. Across these different pieces of our community. Miami-Dade, one of the largest school districts in the nation, an 11th grader hit them on the first day of virtual class, and shut it down. Here they are trying to ramp up with virtual learning with the pandemic going on, and they couldn't do it. But because of that, the water system down in Florida, being hit, Atlanta Police Department, being hit with ransomware. How'd that translate to the police department? They lost all their in-car camera video. That's cases in court, relative to that. And I think, like me and Christian sometimes talk about, from that perspective, being admissible in court, like, one of the references he just made, here now is the fact that, okay, if it's only out of your control for 30 seconds, it's still inadmissible in court. What could happen to the video in 30 seconds? So, I think that it's important to be proactive with cybersecurity solutions instead of reactive. Reed mentioned Cradlepoint, a while ago. The gateway device that you place in in a first responder vehicle, but being able to bring in the security end of that, bring in another vendor that offers that cybersecurity component, and helping those in public safety meet those CGIS requirements, like Christian mentioned. It's just huge, a main priority, because you don't want to be the chief or sheriff to pick up the paper in the morning, or it be all over social media in this day and time that your city's being held for ransomware. It's better to be proactive and implement the cybersecurity solutions that are out there, especially with it being connected smart devices and computing on the edge. You've got to have that play in there, or it's going to be total reactive, in the end after something happens, because it's not a matter, as if it's when it's going to happen to you, and so I think that's my advice on that, relative to what RCN can offer. The end users on the call today is being able to provide some of those solutions that's going to be that cybersecurity layer that you need in this day and time.
Yeah. Reed, do you want to add anything to that?
Just a little bit. I think just as a general rule of thumb at this day and age, any kind of local or state government agency always needs to have a branch strategy in mind. What I mean by that, very minimum, you need to have some kind of firewall appliance out there at the edge that's been up to date. It's not end of life. It's not end of support. It currently supports all the latest firmwares, not only there, but also in a lot of your endpoint units as well, if your employees are able to take those outside of that primary network. One thing I will point out, and one thing I think is paramount, and we might touch on it later, but I think it's absolutely mission critical, for example, in the event of a ransomware attack, that you have some kind of image and file-based backup that's on a secondary server that really doesn't touch your network at all. And that way you have a recovery outlet in the event that there's absolutely no way you can afford to ransom or whatever that data is that's being held captive at that date and time. So at least from a data standpoint and file standpoint, there are a number of solutions out there that we can offer customers to get that file-based backup, to get that image-based backup on their desktops and get back up and running, either on their personal computers or through virtual machines. So I think one thing that's absolutely critical is that while you're always at risk of a cyber attack, and even the best cybersecurity professionals out there at the state and local level are always at risk, best insurance policy is to always look into your backup options that are secure and off-prem on an entirely different server than what you have locally at your local police department, et cetera. And obviously with law enforcement, especially when it comes to CJIS, there's a lot of requirements to keep that stuff in-house, but to be able to have that backed up in some way, shape, or form in a way that's isolated from your core network, I think is paramount.
And Reed, the criminal element, the criminal enterprise here is even ramping up their game in reference to trying to get cities to pay for ransomware. I mean, I think me and you talked about it the other day, in reference to Washington, D.C. They got attacked with ransomware, and, to entice them to pay, they're actually releasing officers' full personnel files,
Right.
to the public, so trying to entice them to pay the ransom. So, just another example of, the criminal element and where they're trying to take this, in reference to the cybersecurity side of the house here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of honestly brings us a little bit to our next question. Reed, you hit on it. What solutions are currently available to help deal with data storage and real-time data transfers? I know we talked about this a little bit with the body cameras and the cameras in vehicle, but what sort of solutions are you guys seeing out there that are taking advantage of this? Let's see. Yeah, I guess we'll start with Mike.
Oh, okay. I thought you were starting with Reed on that side. No. So in reference to the storage is, I talked just now about how big the security side of it is, and when I got involved in this industry after my first career of 30 years in law enforcement 6 years ago, I was talking about storage, and don't get me wrong, storage is huge in this day and time, because you think about it through all the digital transformation with all of the drivers, your data drivers that are out there. So think about it from in-car cameras, from body-worn cameras, from public safety camera systems, from drones, from automated license plate readers, from records management systems, computer-aided dispatch. All of these data drivers that's coming in to play in reference to storage. And as I've pre-COVID, as I've traveled the country, hearing and seeing some of the solutions that are being used on the storage side is, of course, you can take the on-prem storage. That's one route you can take. You can take the cloud. That's what you're seeing in your NFL-sized cities. And even some of your medium-sized cities where they're going straight to the cloud solution there. But then some's using it as a hybrid method, and that gets back into, okay, how long do I have to retain the data? And that differs by states, in reference to your retention policies there. So, some are saying, this would just be an example. Okay, hey, I've got to retain this data for a year. I'm going to keep it on a local on-prem. And then I've got to retain this, 5 and 10 years down the road. So I'm going to put that in the cloud. But there is different solutions out there that provide different manufacturers that will actually provide those solutions for you. And then getting into that real-time data transfer. I think what you're seeing now with body worn cameras and in-car cameras, that's important. Let's take it back to when we were seeing the protest, last year. What was the outcry of our communities across the nation was greater accountability and transparency with law enforcement. And I think what you're going to see in law enforcement is moving to that next level of community policing, but technology is what's going to help that transparency and accountability, in service to the community. And body worn and in-car cameras come into play huge there. So being able to, these manufacturers are actually listening to, retired and current law enforcement, and hearing the solutions that they need to be able to provide, these and real-time data transfers is huge. That is one of them that plays heavily when you're talking about enhanced accountability and transparency for the communities that you're serving. Being able to release body-worn camera video, in-car camera video, and having that greater transparency, and the manufacturers are actually listening to them. So I'm not going to steal Christian and Reed's thunder on this one with the real-time data transfer. I'm gonna let them go into the specifics on this one.
Cool. Reed, you wanna take us from there?
Well, I mean, just purely to build on the real-time data transfer piece, we keep coming back to it, but really having some kind of 4G or 5G enabled solution, especially if you're any kind of mobile application, will allow, think about this, field analysts or chief command staff back at home base to get active eyes on a situation, right? Not only that, but that data is more accessible in real time, if not live. So if something is needed to be reviewed while the officer's still out in field, if they've got something that's piping it up to the cloud for storage, it can be pulled immediately for review and investigation instead of waiting until you pull a DVR or have that vehicle that it was recorded through come back and hit the local station's network to then offload it to a local server or a server on the cloud. So I think really what we're seeing, no matter if you're in state, local, or the public sector, having some kind of, or public safety rather, having some kind of connectivity backhaul to mission critical video, to mission critical data. It could be your sensor network, right? We're talking about gunshot detection earlier. I think that's paramount, because the more data points, the more information we can be armed with, especially to those sworn to protect us, the safer cities ultimately become, the better officers typically do it, serving their public and also keeping themselves accountable, as Mike said. So I think that really that's what it boils down to. And to drive that home, I'm not sure what I'm leaving left for Christian here, but he always comes through with something. So you add 5G and its ability to expand capacity and increase bandwidth, then all of a sudden you no longer have to have video files being compressed before sent out and up into the cloud for access. And those video files are more pristine than they normally would be as a compressed file being retrieved from the cloud. So I think a lot of those things are really exciting. We'll save the multi-access edge compute part of 5G for another day. It's going to add some interesting revolution as well to real-time data metrics and smart city initiatives. But Christian, anything left in terms of the storage component here?
Oh, yes. I'm glad you guys didn't steal my thunder, because now I'm excited. So it's about what the agency needs. So you'll have some agencies that got some CARES Act money, or they have a one-time grant that they're able to get. Well, they may not be able to afford to expand cloud-based storage for who knows how long, because that's going to be a monthly fee, a growing monthly fee forever. But they can, this one time, buy a significant amount of on-prem storage. And then it's also going to matter what kind of connection they have. Do they have a high-speed connection in all of their locations that can pull something from the cloud quickly? Or are they going to be slowed down by that? Are they able to pull it over their own network? So the budgeting, the network, do they have the budget to put something in every police car that will upload that video in real time wherever they are? Do they need to wait until they pull into a parking lot? Again, we can work with an awful lot of situations. And I had one more great point that, the drones. So not just body cameras, but we have sold drones and found that in many cases, the drone is locked up in the chief's office at night. When they need the drone to go catch somebody at 2 a.m, they don't have it. It's locked up in the chief's office because the chief doesn't trust them. However, when you get some cloud-based storage, now the chief can be sitting in his bed at 2 a.m. And when that drone gets used, he can look on his phone and see what they're using it for and how it's being done. And that seems to allow the chief to trust whoever has that drone, rather than being locked up in an office and not used. It seems to help a lot more. And the final point is, with the cloud-based storages, some of them are really great. You don't have to worry about the security of that. The cloud takes care of the security for you, and they are held responsible for that. But you even have some of them that have no egress fees now. There was a fee to put it up, there's a fee to pull it down. It's kind of hard to predict what the fees are going to be, but you have some now that don't even charge you to take it out of the cloud.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, those were some good points. I'm glad you had some stuff left in the reserves after those answers. But all right, we got one question left. So to each of you, what would you say to an organization that might be looking to implement any of the new technologies discussed today? So I know we're about 12 minutes out from our time, so we might want to try and keep this shorter answers. But what's your thoughts? And let's see. We'll pitch to Reed first. There we go.
Yeah, a quick answer for you, Mark. I would suggest that anyone looking at these technologies give RCN a call for your free consultation, because not only can we sync you up with great resources like Mike and Christian, but we've also got a number of solutions architects and engineers here on staff that are more than willing to help you put together a strategic plan for whatever your city or department's technology initiative or 3 to 5 year plan looks like.
Perfect. Yeah. Christian and Mike, you guys have anything to add?
I think Reed stole the thunder on that one. That would be exactly our suggestion, is use that free consultation, talk to them because you need something built for your needs, whether or not you need cloud storage or on-prem storage or how you're going to connect to it, what's going to happen, and make it a plan, because most of these cities and agencies are required to have a 3 to 5 year plan or a multi-year plan, and they spell out what they want. And if you need help making sure that you get your entire result and you can't fit it in the budget all for 1 year, we can get you rolling and we can make it better next year and better the year after that.
Absolutely.
And I would say, Mark, here we are talking about, digital transformation, smart city IoT solutions. My advice is buy smart. And I've seen in my 30 years of law enforcement and my 6 years on this side of the coin, where agencies didn't do their homework, and thus the technologies didn't perform, as advertised, didn't really solve the problem that they had through the integration of that technology. So who can do the homework for you, to buy smart is RCN. Being able to lean back on RCN, proven technology solutions that have been integrated into agencies, across America, to be able to provide the answers and be able to solve the problems through the integration of technology. So allow RCN to do the homework for you. Buy smart when you're thinking of smart city IoT solutions.